Hi, and thanks for your interest in our project. My name is Michelle Perdomo, and I'll be giving a brief overview on a project that Dr. Dwayne Watson and I are working on together, entitled Internet Usage Affects Lexical Construction Choices. With the internet having an ever-increasing presence in our everyday lives, in our homes, in our classrooms, on our phones, tablets, we're interested in how consumption in this medium affects our language choices. Goals for this project were to characterize website texts based on natural language processing indices, given the myriad of website content that one may encounter online. We use website text to conduct a principal component analysis to, in turn, inform our second experimental objective, which was to investigate whether digital language exposure influences phrasal verb constructional preferences. The literature suggests that language exposure, both text and speech, affects language processing by shaping the predictions language users make and affecting processing efficiency. So we posit that experience with diverse and complex digital texts enables the construction of a better statistical model of linguistic input that language users may reference while they're processing new linguistic information. To test the effects of digital text exposure, we turn to phrasal verb constructions. These are verb-particle combinations that are ubiquitous in English. Most transitive phrasal verbs allow for two alternate constructions: the continuous construction, where the verb and particle are adjacent to one another, where the direct object follows, and the discontinuous construction, where the direct object intervenes between the verb and the particle. Not only do phrasal verbs vary in their alternate constructions, but they also range on a scale of idiomaticity. We use these two characteristics of phrasal verbs to our advantage. In this project, we assess constructional preferences for phrasal verbs. Preferences for phrasal verb constructions are modulated by collostructional frequency, so how often a particular phrasal verb occurs in a particular construction. Additionally, according to corpus studies, idiomaticity can also affect order preference, with compositional phrasal verbs favoring the discontinuous construction and idiomatic ones favoring the continuous construction. Our experiment involved administering a reading questionnaire and a forced choice task to M-Turkers. M-Turkers were asked to choose a sentence to end each short story. An example here is given on the left-hand side, and our results followed our predictions. Compositional phrasal verbs were preferred in that discontinuous construction over the continuous one. Next, we assessed whether the quality of text from websites M-Turkers frequented affected these preferences. We asked M-Turkers about their favorite websites, and we pulled text samples from each of those websites. Then we ran those texts through natural language processing tools for cohesion, lexical sophistication, and syntactic sophistication. Finally, this was run in a principal component regression using the phrasal verb constructional data. We first found that preference for the discontinuous construction decreased with greater degree of lexical and syntactic simplicity, the third principal component in our analysis. If the underlying form of phrasal verbs is the continuous construction, then the continuous is less marked and requires less cognitive effort to access and process. Those participants with less exposure to complex text online are less likely to default to the continuous construction. We also found that preference for the discontinuous construction for idiomatic phrasal verbs increased with higher lexical prototypicality. Studies involving corpora have revealed that the discontinuous construction is used more often in speech than the continuous construction. Assuming this, we speculate that lexical prototypicality in these digital texts is a proxy for more speech-like text, which requires a bit further investigation. Why this only happens for idiomatic phrasal verbs requires more speculation as well. But what we can conclude is that digital language exposure to simple, less complex texts and more prototypical vocabulary affects phrasal verb constructional preferences. In the future, we plan to compare features of spoken versus written language to further assess digital texts, looking at different websites like chat forums, blog posts versus news articles. We also intend to explore whether digital language exposure affects processing of other types of grammatical constructions, using online methods like self-paced reading and eye tracking. If you're interested in the details of the principal component analysis we ran, I am more than happy to introduce those in the Q&A session. Thanks for listening to our talk.